everyone. My name is Deneen White, and I am the host of the VIP Ignite Live podcast. And today I have the honor of interviewing the one, the only Bobby Funaro. You may know him from The Sopranos. You may know him from any of the, I don't even know how many projects you've worked on. You've been with Scorsese. You've done so many amazing projects, Bobby. So thank you so much for being on the podcast with me today.
And thank you too, Deneen. With that introduction, that's a great opening. What can I say?
You say that every time I introduce
say
you.
thanks. Say thanks. Say thanks.
That's awesome. So, Bobby, you've had such an amazing career in the entertainment industry. You've worked with people like Martin Scorsese. You've had the opportunity to work with people like James Gandolfini. But tell me, how did you get started in the entertainment industry? How did you get started as an actor?
Well, they say the expression is when you got the bug. I got the bug through my uncle, who was a priest, and when he first started his priesthood in Howard Beach, I forgot the parish, he was putting up these productions, these musical productions, Hello, Dolly, Guys and Dolls. These musicals we went to because he was my father's brother, and it was a big occasion. We'd go out there to Howard Beach and make a night of it. And I really grew up on those musicals, and that's how I really acquired a love for drama. Of course, observing and viewing films with my Uncle Nick. And so, I mean, these are people who were our heroes. We didn't have too much money in the beginning, and it was a struggle. So we looked to these film people and actors as role models for hope, and that's how I acquired that my love for theater and the arts through my uncle, Father Joe Monsignor Funaro. At the end of his career, he had a parish in Brooklyn, and then he went to Queens, and he put up professional productions. And sometimes some of the musical people or even the directors would come to see his productions. Some of the players, they went on to be on Broadway. So he was a director, and I think that's where I get the that little bit of knack for directing and acting through him.
That's awesome. So you basically grew up around theater.
Yeah. Well, it was not every day, of course, not the same kind of theater that a lot of people grow up in the theater, but that's how I got the love for it.
Awesome. So when did you know that this was something you were going to do full time?
Okay. I went to Pace University for accounting. And for my final, I wrote a poem called Don't Quit for my accounting final. And that's when I knew that
for your accounting final.
Yes. So that wasn't going to work. Things go wrong as they sometimes do when the road you're trudging seems all uphill, the debts are high and the funds are low, and you want to smile and you have to sigh when care is pressing you down a bit. Rest of you must, but don't you quit. And anyway, it didn't work out, the accounting. So I went back home, and it was a half a semester. And my mom, I talked to my mom, and she encouraged me. She said, "What do you want to do?" I said, "Well, I do like drama. They have a drama program," because I hate accounting. I mean, I wanted the Jaguar. I wanted the house on the hill, but it just wasn't going to work out for me. It wasn't in my heart. Your heart, there your treasure is. So I switched over to drama. Bradley Cooper was in that same program, not when I was doing it, later on in his career.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, Bradley Cooper graduated Pace Drama. And who did A Star Is Born?
Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga.
Okay, I just wanted to
Most
make sure.
recently.
I get him confused with another Cooper actor. Anyway, so I really took to it like fish in the water. And I met someone there. I lived my life. It's such a long story. I lived my life a little bit, and I kind of put it down for a while, for about 3-4 years. And finally, I kind of said, I'm not really happy doing what I'm doing. And I changed my whole life around. And I came back home. And my parents were very supportive of me. If you really want to do this, then study acting with the right people. And they helped me. I went to HB Studio, and then later on, Bobby Lewis from the group theater. I met people, I networked. The Drama Bookshop back then, it's still around on 42nd Street, 41st Street. And I met people, I networked, and that's how I got into the play with James, Streetcar Named Desire. Eventually, I worked with the right people, and I studied with the right people that really were professionals and had professional theaters. HB was good, but it really wasn't so good. After I did a play with Paul Savino, I realized that there's something missing with HB, and I don't know what it is. But what it was the process of, doing a play from the beginning, from the first rehearsal, which is what we do in the VIP talent coaching workshop with me. We start from the beginning of reading it, getting a plan, a character plan. What's the overall objective of the play? What's the meaning of the play? What are some characteristic elements of the character you can work on through yourself? And that usually has imagination, so you have a plan, and then you go for it in the third rehearsal. You get it up on its feet, you start rehearsing, and then a final farewell performance. That's what I got from Bobby Lewis, and that's when I really started working. And I got my first professional job with James in Streetcar in Scandinavia for 3 months. So I went back and I really worked hard at it.
That's awesome. Michael and I were Michael Funkin, the co-founder of VIP Ignite. For anyone listening to the podcast who doesn't know who he is, he and I were talking before I got on the podcast with you, and he said, Bobby is one of the actors that I admire so much, because he told me about a story where you were at a VIP Ignite event and you were reading a book on La Cosa Nostra for a role. He said, Bobby is one of the people that he's a voracious studier of not only of theater and drama, but also the characters that he becomes, the characters that he plays. So can you talk about how having a thirst for knowledge is really something every actor needs?
Well, as you get more experienced, you realize that it's really about behavior and using yourself through the character. And sometimes you get lucky and they both come together and you really realize it. I mean, it's hard to play a husband when you haven't been married, but then when you're married, you have that experience. Like when Da Vinci, he would use models, he would have them holding certain things to see the weight in their hands. It didn't necessarily have to be what it was in true life, or a plate of food or whatever it was, but he had them hold it. So he didn't have the plate of food. So as an example, so in life, you need that experience. And as you grow in your knowledge of acting, your experience meets the plays that you're doing. And then it really becomes one unit. And that cannot be taught. That has to be, you have to experience that. Of course, it's always good to know as much, but sometimes you might read a thing and then you get one good idea from that. And that's all you need is one really good idea to transcend or to really define a character. You see it in films, Dustin Hoffman, Rain Man. He probably did extensive research with autistic men and everything. And, that whole thing, definitely, that whole thing that he did, it was from studying life. So knowledge is the human life, and also books are very good because you learn from them. And of course, now with podcasts and masterclass, but it doesn't replace the experience.
Yeah.
Class is good and the coaching and all that stuff is good, but at some time, when you put that down, you need the experience, and because you really learn from, but you do need the the foundation. And that's what we have here at VIP
Yeah.
together, is we provide a foundation. So then when you get, like me, I was lost when I did the play with Salvino, The Rain Man, where we had a couple of nights of the understudies. I was understudying. We're able to perform it. After it, I was like, what am I doing here? It's like, so we prepare you to that knowledge is important, because you're gonna be comfortable. You're gonna be, listen, acting, you're never gonna be totally comfortable. The best are not comfortable, but as you progress in doing a play repetitively, and even in a film, the multiple takes, that helps you to get there. And with a good director, he'll know that's the one, and that's all you need.
That's awesome. I love that, because I've spoken to so many different actors who, like yourself, and they're all students of humanity. They're also like, when they go out, they're studying the way people are interacting with one another. I have one, you may know him, Mark Christopher Lawrence. When he is when he's out in public, he's watching the way people walk, he's watching the way people interact and hold their hands, and he brings all of that into his characters. So I love what you were just saying, because again, knowledge is so important, but eventually you have to put it into action. And I love that you said that too, because we have so many talent that are like, they're amassing all of this knowledge. I'm like, stop studying and get out of the nest, go do something. So I'm glad that you said that.
Yeah, you're going to be uncomfortable. It's the first line, the first section of the play. It's just like, even in a film, that first take, they're going to have the nerves, but you got to overlook that. You got to keep on going. Don't focus on the mistake that you might have made. You flubbed the line. If you don't focus on it, and you focus on what you're doing there and how you're going to get it, that's all that matters. Of course, everybody, believe it or not, they're on your side. You were hired because there's certain quality and essence that you had. So once you got the job, they believe in you.
Yeah.
And even if you screw up, because everyone does it, you're hammering a nail and you miss the nail. They can a carpenter could put another nail and hammer it in. But us as actors, holy shit, I screwed that up. This is terrible. That's our disease, so to say.
That's the creative disease, I think.
So yeah, that's important.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned the greats earlier. You've worked with so many great people. I mean, you've had the opportunity, like we said, to work with James Gandolfini. Can you talk a little bit about how you had an interaction with him at Caroline's, and how that got you to the point where you were able to audition to be on The Sopranos?
Well, a friend of mine went up to James just before season 3 at a party he was at, and said, friend Gordon, he's got a lot of good big pair of, you know what I mean? And he went up to him and said, hey, if I was you, I'd get your friend Bobby Funaro. You know him, Bobby, he's working at Caroline's, and get him a job on your show. And Jim said, wow, Bobby, yeah, of course I know Bobby. What's Bobby doing? Well, he's a manager at Caroline's. And Jim said, okay. And something came up on the show where they needed a character. And James showed up just before season 3 to offer me an audition for that character. And that was a great experience to go down, to descend into the Caroline's and see him at the front bar. And of course, say, Jimmy, congratulations, all your success. But what are you doing here? You just walk in. I work here. So I knew you worked there. Your friend Gordon, he told me about you, and I want to offer you. I can't promise you anything, but I'll get you an audition with Georgiana Walken. She's across the street, and you study, you get the role, and I'm going to give me your information. And he went with his driver, Joe Fay, really wonderful guy. He was his driver in the union, the local union there, the ATSI union. And Joe was a great guy. And Joe wasn't there, but he took him to a few comedy clubs because he didn't really know, he couldn't remember which one. So
He did a tour of comedy clubs before you.
They landed at Caroline's on 50th Street, and then that was it. And then that's how I got my big start. I said it before, I'll say it a million times. He sent the elevator down, as Jack Lemmon says. And I try to do that for as many people as I can, to try to pay it forward. Right. So,
yeah. What was it like getting that big break?
I mean, I didn't have an agent. James asked me if I was acting. And I said, yeah, of course. I wasn't. You have to lie. So I'm an actor. I said, yeah, of course, on and off. And I really really wanted to did a lot of praying and a lot of studying. I remember before the audition, I stayed at Caroline's. I think I almost till about 4 a.m. studying the role so I can have the quiet, because I had a baby at home and with my wife there at the time, and so I did a lot of work on it. But it was a great feeling to be cast on that show, to go to Silver Cup first to see Georgianne and they're really liking you, and then to go to Silver Cup and then be accepted and be given that job. It was really my apprenticeship, where James had many more, well, not many more, but he had a lot more jobs under the professional jobs under his belt. I never really had a film job under my belt. So this is for everybody out there. You can learn on the job, which is what we were talking about before. There is a way to learn at the job. If you're with the right people, guys like Marty, David Chase, and Tim Van Patten, some of the directors that I've worked with, they want you to be comfortable. They want you to do good. There's no pressure. So you can learn on the job and get better and better at it. There's no reason to be discouraged.
That's awesome. So speaking of Marty, also known as Martin Scorsese to the rest of us.
Right.
So you've had the opportunity to work with him a couple times. What was it like the first time you walked on set and knew, oh my gosh, I am on set with Martin Scorsese? Well,
I tell you the truth, you try not to really kind of, we're highly suggestible actors. So I get more of that when I leave the set and when it's all over. Holy shit, I just was like on set with Marty and Robert De Niro, and this feels good. This feels good. But when you're there, it's a different story. You have a job and you've got to be level-headed. James Gandolfini once told me that if you're going to be all uptight and all starstruck about working with Bobby De Niro and Gene Hackman or anyone that's met Brad Pitt, you should really not do this, because you just got to believe in yourself. So and working with Josh Brolin on American Gangster, that was a good experience, but I never was like starstruck, you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, you say, wow, that's pretty cool. Well, because you got to work, you got to be yourself, and if you know what I mean. So.
Yeah, you're not going on as a fan, you're going on as a peer. When you walk on set, you're walking on as a peer. And I think that's something a lot of times people too don't understand. Like when I interview Tom, like, oh my gosh, like, who would you like to work with? They're like, Will Smith, Denzel Washington. And they you could tell like that it's coming from a fanhood, but it's also really, I think it's natural to kind of have that holy mackerel, look what I'm doing. I have that a lot. Sometimes, like, even when I was like, oh, I'm interviewing Bobby Funaro, like, I know we chat back and forth all the time. I'm like, how did this happen? But at the same time, you can't be like fangirling, or you can't be acting like a fan when you're in the middle of a project.
Yes.
Awesome. So what would you say is one of the biggest things that you learned from Martin Scorsese while on set with him?
I think it's creating a really relaxed environment where you can do your best work, that there's no stress involved, that there's no criticism. And if there is a criticism, it's not a criticism, it's a note. And it's a positive note in how to do something, or a way of a suggestion of how to do something. Of course, and in that kind of environment, and I think that's the reason why Martin Scorsese gets such great work from all the big roles to the other roles, because let's face it, it's the whole body that really makes the picture. All the characters, and I mean, it's great, and you have the eyes and the main people, but you still need the mouth and you still need the pinkies. They're important. They make part of every piece of the body works together. So he creates that environment. The take that we did that they kept for Irishman was the last take where Marty just said, go ahead, just let it whatever you want to do, just whatever you just let one, you just do it. Yeah. Anyway, and I kept to the script, but I did add some of the lines. I did ad lib some of the lines, and he kept that take. So I was really, really happy with it. He was happy with it too, because I mean, that's what you want: verisimilitude, the truth in any kind of scene. That's what you're looking for. And then at the end of the day, what is it? It's like Alan Arkin. I was watching him, a couple of interviews with him. Rest in peace. Great actor. And he was talking about how you don't so much remember a film or people in a film. I wouldn't say, you remember them by what you felt, how they made you feel, how this person made you feel, as opposed just to what they did. How they make you feel. So, I mean, that's important. So Marty makes you feel good, and you feel good, and then you do well, and you make people feel well. Like, for instance, like with Members Only, Eugene's trajectory of wanting to get out, I think a lot of people could associate with getting out. And one thing, the domino effect started happening. His son on drugs, and then his wife, pressure to get out, and the delay. It caused this whole situation, this combustible situation, where he lost it and said, "Well, the only way I can get out of this situation is if I end my life and I can liberate my family." I think people could relate to that. I'm not saying that is an answer. It's not an answer, but for that character, it was. But people felt like, wow, I feel bad for the guy that got one, So
Yeah.
That's what they remember. So that's important.
Yeah. No, I love it. I love what you're explaining, because it's very much a human reaction. Like,
Yeah.
to protect, sometimes people do things to protect their families that you would never think you were able to do or willing to do. That was a really great example. So, you have done such a wide range of roles. You've done TV and film, you've done theater, you've done commercials. Can you talk a little bit about how walking on a commercial set is different than walking on a TV and film set versus working in theater and being in theater, like on a theater set?
Well, the commercial set is really, you're hired in a commercial for what you did at that audition. They just want natural, it's not creative, just being you. They want that essence of what you gave them. And that's the difference. There's a lot of imagination. They just want regular people, regular talking, and unless you're doing one that's creative, but most of them are just being you. And there are actors that have a great knack for it, and they continually work at it. It's a good medium. I don't work a lot in commercials, but you can, everyone kind of finds their own niche. There are great commercial actors that are in every commercial. Say, oh, that guy's in that commercial again. Well, mine are more specific. The ones that I was in, Christopher Columbus and his crew on speedboats for Geico. So I fit into that one. So.
That's awesome.
But they are quite lucrative. But the difference between them and especially film and TV, a little less creative, a little bit. You're doing what you did at that audition. They liked what you did. Like I had one for Jerry Seinfeld. It really wasn't a commercial, but they brought me into the commercial agency to audition for it. It was a promo, and I did that through the commercial agency. So Atlas, as a matter of fact, and it was one line. And it was called it was shot about 4 or 5 years ago, called 23 Hours to Kill. Jerry's, special, 23 Hours to Kill. And that's what it's about, 23 hours to kill. So when Jerry goes up on stage, I play a stagehand, and I say, hey, Jerry. He says, hey, I say, what are you going to do after this? What are you going to do after this? And he says, I don't know. I don't know. Because it's 3 hours to kill. It's like, I don't know what I'm going to do. It was funny. But I got that through Atlas, but they wanted that regular guy.
Yeah.
I did the audition. When I met Jerry, great guy, met his manager. It was wonderful to meet him, and such a genius comedian. and really had a great day at the Beacon Theater shooting that day. Wasn't long, but it was really a wonderful day. And they want they want what you bring in, very natural. That's the thing. No thinking involved, just being right there. And they're good because they keep you going as an actor. They're very good. I wouldn't turn down any commercial audition because you don't know when the next job's coming in and when you need the finances to keep you going.
Yeah,
That's what
for sure.
strike is all about, to keeping the finances, keeping people up afloat.
Yeah. Awesome. So what's the difference between TV and film and theater? Talk a little bit about that as well.
Well, in film, there's a little bit more leeway for improvisation, as I said.
Yeah.
Well, once you really are inhabiting the character and the director really believes in you, you can kind of let it flow. What you're thinking, what the characters, what you're thinking, which is married to the character. For instance, a great example is Are You Talking to Me with Robert De Niro? That was something he was doing off screen that day, and on the set, he just came up with that. And Marty saw it, and he said, "Holy crap, that's great! Let's get that. Because let's face it, film is it's a visual medium. It's all visual, and you can come up with something great in film. Now, there's great films that are written that don't need any kind of improvisation, especially the ones that were like A Streetcar Named Desire, like Tennessee Williams stuff, On the Waterfront, Bud Schoberg's. But I'm sure there was leeway in saying a few things, but some things are written so well that you don't have to touch them. But film has that tendency to kind of veer off a little bit.
Yeah.
And TV, you got to go, most times in TV, the ones that I worked on, you have to really use the writing that the writers wrote, especially Blue Bloods and Sopranos was a stickler for every single line. That line's been worked on. You don't realize the wordsmith, that writer's like a wordsmith going over, painstakingly going over that line and knowing that he hears it. Not only does he write it, he hears it. So when he hears it, you got to kind of deliver it. They don't tell you how to do it that way, but you have to stick to, in television, you have to stick to basically the line. Now in plays, you really have to just not veer from any of the lines, and you repetitively do them, and you make them your own. Eventually, you have to learn the lines. And in the theater, you do learn the lines, but as the play progresses in performance, I think it gets better and better because you're kind of owning them, and then you can kind of veer from the lines themselves, like an improv, like a jazz, the mood that you're doing. It's like jazz.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you find different ways, not for the sake of finding different ways, but new revelations of what the character how he gets what he wants and how he behaves. But the only way to do that is by repetitively doing it. Now, like rehearsing a play right now, Marlon Brando sat right here. And just with the reader that I have coming, I have my friend, my neighbor come in to read with me. I still, by reading it, I say, well, I understand that a little bit better. I get that moment there. It's a little bit softer. I can see how you know what I mean? So, but that's the difference of the three mediums for me, at least.
And then also with theater, you have that live audience too. So you have the energy of the audience that you get to play off of as well.
Well, there's nothing like that. That's why I like theater the best, because it's live and you can feel the audience that are with you. I mean, and you have another chance to do it the next day and the next day and the next day and the next day. So, and that's a great feeling. Whereas, in film and TV, you get that rush on set, you're doing it, but then when you watch it, it's not the same. Not the same as doing it when you felt when you're doing it. So when you're in the theater, you really get it right then and there, and you hold on to it. In film, it's a little bit more elusive. Do you know what I mean? But it's great too. It's great acting too. But I do have a tendency to like the theater better.
I didn't want to ask you which one you preferred, because sometimes I feel like it's like, okay, which is your favorite child? So thank you for answering without even having me ask. I appreciate that.
No doubt it's theater. I mean, you're waiting around at a film, you're waiting around a long time. I mean, But I mean, it's very rewarding also when you have a role that you really believe in and you're on a roll. Like when I did Eugene on Members Only, I think it was the greatest time I had acting on Sopranos because it was like the theater. I had a trajectory, a chronology of what was happening. Whereas come in on the different episodes, you're living your life as the character, but it's kind of staccato. You see him and he's living, but that role was a great role. I've had it on certain independent films. There's a new one coming out called Critical Acclaim, a filmmaker that gets a bad review and he kind of loses it. That film was about this filmmaker. So those are great. I enjoy film when I'm doing that. When I play a protagonist or a role that's pivotal in the fabric of the film. The overall fabric.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast. When I was thinking about how people I wanted to host, I was like, I can't believe I've never had Bobby Funaro on my podcast. That's insane.
I don't believe it either. We're crazy.
I know, right? So, Bobby, I just want to thank you so much for your time today. Thank you so much also for pouring into our talent. I know they all love having the workshops with you. And I know I personally cannot fold socks without hearing all of them doing more socks. And if you're listening to this, if you become a part of VIP Ignite, you'll understand what we mean. It's a little bit of an inside joke.
Check my dryer. I put my socks in the dryer this morning. I hope I get them all. I hope they all come out.
Awesome. But Bobby, I just want to thank you so much. You're such a good friend, not only to VIP Ignite, but to our talent. We just want you to know how much we appreciate you.
I really appreciate it. Both you and Ali Kabak's artistry and Mike and your belief in me and the whole crew, all the other people who do the modeling and everything who are trying to there's nothing greater than to Frank Capra in his autobiography talks about everything before he did Mr. Deeds, his first film or his first real film. Mr. Deeds Goes to Town with Gary Cooper. He talks about that he wanted to get the Academy Award. It was self. And then after it happened one night where they got 4 Academy Awards and he got his Academy Award, he went to a depression because he realized he was like, now it's all up to me. It's all this pressure on me. And some man came up to him and someone had a talk with him. And, World War II was happening. And he said, you have a great responsibility as a filmmaker to help others, not just yourself. Mm-hmm. And he decided to do films to help others' dreams. And not only our dreams as actors and helping those actors, but dreams of Americans. And all these films are about Americans. They're Capra films about the underdog, the person who does an ordinary job, who's kind of lifted into the limelight, like many Americans have been. All of a sudden, the next day, you're popular because of what you did honestly and truthfully. So that's your responsibility, and I'm glad to be a part of it. I'll let you go now because I'm talking too much. No,
I could talk to you all day too. We'll have to do another podcast where we can use that as our jumping off.
All right. Okay.
Awesome. Well, guys, thank you so much for listening to this episode of the VIP Ignite Live podcast. Make sure you hit subscribe to whatever channel you're listening to this on. Not only will you have more of Bobby, because we just said we're going to be doing another podcast, but I have so many amazing actors, models, musicians that are going to be on here to give you knowledge about the industry. So make sure you click subscribe to the VIP Ignite Live podcast. Also, please make sure you follow us on all forms of social media at VIP Ignite. And thank you for listening. And I will see you on the next episode. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Deneen.
You're welcome. Thank you, Bobby.
All right. Talk to you later. Love you.
Bye.
Bye.